I tried the most viral Dollar Tree garden DIYs, so you don't have to. Hey garden dreamers, tinkerers, and weekend warriors, welcome back to Earthly Delights, where a little dirt under your nails can lead to pure magic. If you're someone who loves reimagining your backyard with charm, if your heart races a little when you see an empty corner just waiting to bloom, or if you've ever walked into Dollar Tree and wondered, could I turn this into something beautiful? Then you're in the right place. Today I put 16 of the most viral garden DIYs to the test, so you don't have to. Some were total Pinterest fantasies that crumbled in the sun, but a few, they were absolute backyard miracles. And whether you've got a sprawling garden or a tiny patio, this video will help you unlock your outdoor space's true potential without spending a fortune or losing your mind over failed glue jobs. So grab your iced tea, settle in, and let's take a creative stroll through the wins, flops, and wild surprises of viral garden DIYs. And hey, if you love breathing life into forgotten corners with plants, paint, and a little patience, hit subscribe and join our garden-loving family right here on Earthly Delights. Part 1. The $3 Hanging Basket Reinvented. Let's kick things off with a DIY that practically took over TikTok. What people are calling the $3 hanging basket. You've probably seen it floating around. 2 wire baskets, a few chains, and a splash of black spray paint to give it that high-end garden center vibe. All for under $3. Sounds too good to be true, right? I walked into Dollar Tree with low expectations and walked out with the supplies and a tiny glimmer of hope. But let me tell you, assembling this wasn't quite the 10-minute miracle the internet promised. The wires had a mind of their own, bending and twisting like they were protesting my project. Still, with some zip ties, patience, and a vision, I added a touch of rustic charm using jute rope instead of the standard chain. Once it all came together, filled with trailing ivy and marigolds, it looked like something out of a garden magazine. 3 days later, it was still holding up beautifully, even through a light summer breeze. For the price, this DIY is a solid win, stylish, durable, and surprisingly satisfying to build. And if you're working with a small porch or balcony, this one's a game changer. Ready to see what worked and what failed spectacularly next? Let's keep going. Part 2. Crystal solar lantern with a glow-up pength. Now this next one had me hooked from the start. The idea was simple. Take a plain Dollar Tree vase, glue on glass gems, drop in a solar light, and by nightfall you've got a lantern that sparkles like a jar of diamonds. I mean, who wouldn't want that kind of magic lighting up their garden path? I gathered my supplies, turned on a podcast, and started gluing gem by gem. It took longer than I thought. Definitely not a quick fix kind of DIY. But once finished, it caught the light in the most enchanting way. Even during the day, it looked like something out of a fairy tale. But here's where I added a twist. I brushed a thin layer of glass paint on the inside of the vase, just a touch of soft amber tint. That tiny change, it transformed the lantern. When night came and the solar puck lit up, it cast this warm golden glow that felt cozy, even a little romantic. And despite 3 rainy nights, the glue held strong. No fogging, no peeling. This one isn't just a Pinterest win, it's a backyard showstopper. Durable, easy to customize, and absolutely worth the effort. Stick around because up next, we're stepping into a miniature fantasy with one of the most charming projects of them all. Part 3. Fairy door planter and the storybook touch. Alright, I have to admit, this next project made me feel like a kid again. The fairy door planter. Just saying it out loud brings a little smile, doesn't it? The concept is adorable. Take a basic terracotta pot, attach a tiny handcrafted door, and suddenly your garden turns into the entryway to a secret world. I used a Dollar Tree photo frame as the base, trimmed some craft sticks into an arch, and painted it with soft pastel shades, lavender, mint, and a touch of gold on the doorknob. Then came the fun part, adding moss, mini mushrooms, pebbles, and even a tiny fairy mailbox I made from an old jewelry clasp. Placing it at the base of a planter gave the whole thing such a magical vibe, like something out of a children's book. But after 2 rainy days, disaster. The door peeled right off. That hot glue didn't stand a chance against humidity. So I reattached everything using a waterproof adhesive and sealed the whole setup with clear spray. Now, it's weatherproof, whimsical, and still going strong weeks later. This one's more than just cute. It adds heart to your garden. And if you've got kids, grandkids, or just a big imagination, it'll become your favorite corner. Coming up next, we shift from magic to motion, with a project that spins, sparkles, and stirs curiosity. Part 4. Wind spinner plates. A garden that dances. If you've ever wanted to add movement to your garden without spending a fortune on metal sculptures, this next DIY might just steal your heart. The viral wind spinner, made entirely out of plastic plates, looked so playful online. I knew I had to try it, but I didn't want mine to look like a kindergarten craft project, so I gave it a makeover. Instead of using just lightweight plastic plates, I mixed in a few sturdier melamine ones in deep blues and mustard yellows for a more refined look. I drilled small holes through the center of each plate and separated them with clear spacers to help with airflow. Then I mounted the whole thing on a garden stake using a swivel hook. And then I waited. The first breeze hit, and magic. The plates spun with grace, catching the sunlight and sending little flickers of color dancing across my yard. It wasn't just eye-catching, it was oddly calming, like watching a mobile in slow motion. But in stronger wind, the lighter plates started to wobble a bit too much. So I swapped those out and rebalanced the structure. Once it was sturdy, it became a joyful little centerpiece in my flower bed. This DIY doesn't do much functionally, but it brings pure happiness. And if your garden's missing movement, this is one of the easiest and most delightful ways to bring it to life. But if spinning plates aren't your style, wait until you see how an over-the-door shoe rack turned into a vertical garden. Yep, you heard that right. That's coming up next. Part 5. The Succulent Shoe Organizer Wall. Now, if you're tight on space but big on dreams, this next idea might just be your new favorite garden hack. Picture this. A basic over-the-door fabric shoe organizer, the kind you'd usually hang in your closet, turned into a lush, vertical succulent garden. Sounds crazy? I thought so too. But curiosity got the better of me. I grabbed one in a soft beige tone and started by punching small drainage holes at the bottom of each pocket. Then I reinforced those with hot glue to avoid any tearing later on. I filled each compartment with a bit of cactus soil and gently tucked in faux succulents, plus a few real herbs, just to test the waters. The result was shockingly beautiful. Hung on a wooden fence, it looked vibrant, tidy, and modern. The vertical layout was a game changer. It brought life to an otherwise empty wall, and for a small patio or apartment balcony, that's gold. But I'll be honest, the real plants struggled. Those pockets just don't hold moisture well, and unless you're misting daily, they dry out fast. So I swapped the live herbs with air plants and stuck to mostly faux greenery. Problem solved. It's quirky, it's creative, and it's perfect for anyone dreaming of a garden but limited by square footage. And next up, we go from vertical to mobile, with a rustic ladder stand that might just be the smartest plant display on this list. Stay with me. Part 6. Rustic Ladder Plant Stand. Reinvented. Sometimes the simplest ideas can feel like pure genius, and this rustic ladder plant stand is one of them. At first glance, it looks like something straight out of a farmhouse magazine, a tiered plant shelf leaning casually against the wall, overflowing with herbs and succulents. But would it actually hold up in real life, and on a budget? I started with 2 broomsticks from Dollar Tree, paired with 3 unfinished wooden crates. A little paint, a lot of hope. I chose a soft farmhouse white and lightly distressed the edges with sandpaper for that vintage vibe. But here's the twist. I added folding hinges to the back and wheels to the base, so now it's completely mobile. I can roll it into sun when I need or tuck it away when it rains. Assembly took a bit of adjusting. Those crates aren't perfectly shaped, but once I reinforced them with leftover scrap wood, the whole structure stood firm. I filled each level with cascading ivy, tiny terracotta pots, and fresh basil. Suddenly, my garden had height, personality, and portability. And it's not just a display. It's a centerpiece. For small spaces, balconies, or anyone who loves rearranging their layout with the seasons, this DIY gives you freedom and flair. But if you're into low-maintenance beauty with high visual impact, wait till you see what I did with a plain plastic fence panel. That's coming up next. Part 7. The Fence Planter Wall Glow-Up. Every once in a while, you stumble upon a DIY that feels like it was made for small space gardeners. The fence planter wall is exactly that. It's simple, it's vertical, and it turns any boring wooden or chain-link fence into a living, breathing wall of green. The original idea uses Dollar Tree's plastic garden fencing panels as a frame to hang lightweight pots. So I picked up a few panels, zip ties, some mini planters, and a roll of floral wire. At first glance, it looked a little flimsy, but with a few tweaks, it turned into something truly special. Instead of just tying on the pots, I upgraded the whole look with sturdy metal S-hooks and reinforced the back with wooden garden stakes. Then, to add a little personality, I painted the plastic fencing a soft sage green and attached mini chalkboard labels to each pot, perfect for writing plant names or little messages that change with the season. But the magic happened at night. I clipped on solar-powered string lights along the top edge. As the sun set, the lights flickered on, casting a cozy glow over my wall of trailing ivy and faux eucalyptus. It gave the whole garden that greenhouse cafe charm, without the cafe prices. For renters, tiny patios, or anyone wanting to hide an eyesore wall, this DIY delivers beauty and function. But speaking of charm, our next project brings a whole different kind of vibe: soft pastels, stenciled lettering, and serious cottagecore energy. Let's head to the shabby chic side of the garden. Part 8. Shabby chic flower buckets with a secret. If you've ever fallen in love with that dreamy cottagecore aesthetic, soft pastels, vintage textures, and overflowing florals, this one's gonna steal your heart. The shabby chic flower bucket DIY is all about charm. But I wasn't content with just looks. I wanted function too. I started with a few galvanized metal pails from Dollar Tree, the kind that usually sit forgotten on the bottom shelf. I gave them new life using chalk paint in blush pink, mint green, and ivory. Then I lightly sponged on white accents around the rims to give them that weathered, time-worn look. Add a few stenciled words like bloom, grow, or herbs, and suddenly they looked like something from a boutique garden shop. But here's the twist. I turned one of the buckets into a self-watering container. By nesting a small plastic cup with holes into the bottom and adding a wicking system from cotton rope, the plant inside could draw water as needed. That one upgrade made all the difference for busy days and forgetful gardeners. I filled the buckets with faux daisies and peonies for the front steps and tucked a few real herbs in the self-watering one. Together, they look like tiny bouquets posing for a photo shoot. High on style, low on effort, and practical too. So, if you're someone who loves the look of a romantic garden but doesn't want the maintenance, this project is a sweet spot. But up next, we trade pastels for twilight magic, with glowing jars that bring your garden path to life. Stay with me. Part 9. Mason jar fireflies. Lighting the path with magic. There's something about soft garden lights at dusk that feels like a gentle exhale. That's exactly what drew me to this next idea. Mason jar fireflies. The promise? Twinkling jars lined along a garden path, glowing like tiny lanterns at twilight. Simple, sweet, and full of charm. I picked up a set of Dollar Tree mason jars, some battery-operated fairy lights, and a bag of decorative glass pebbles. First, I coiled the lights inside the jars and layered the pebbles at the bottom, not just for weight, but to reflect and scatter the glow in all directions. Then I spaced them evenly along my garden walkway. The first night I turned them on, it felt like stepping into a storybook. Each jar gave off a warm, golden glow, soft enough to feel cozy, but bright enough to guide your way. But here's the issue: battery life. After a few nights, I was replacing batteries way too often. So, I swapped in solar puck lights from the garden section. Problem solved. They charge during the day and come to life at dusk without any effort. As a bonus, I added a drop of lavender oil to the pebble base, not only for scent, but as a natural mosquito repellent. If your garden needs a touch of wonder, this DIY delivers. It's affordable, easy to scale, and turns even the smallest outdoor space into a glowing sanctuary. And if you think this was enchanting, wait until you see what happens when we bring beads, hoops, and fairy lights together next. Part 10. Beaded garden chandelier. A touch of backyard glam. Now, who says outdoor spaces can't have a little sparkle and drama? This next DIY brought serious garden glam, and it started with nothing more than plastic beads, embroidery hoops, and a dream. The beaded garden chandelier might sound over the top, but once I saw it glowing under the stars, I knew it was worth every minute. I began by painting 2 wooden embroidery hoops in a soft gold, then strung dozens of clear and iridescent beads into long strands, letting them cascade from the top like raindrops frozen in time. I attached them around the hoops in layers, creating a waterfall effect that shimmered even in daylight. To bring it to life at night, I wrapped the top in a string of warm white fairy lights. Battery-operated at first, but later swapped for a solar-powered puck hidden in the center. I hung the whole piece from a shepherd's hook in the garden, adjusting the balance carefully until it hung just right. The first night it lit up, it was pure magic. Light danced off the beads and cast gentle patterns onto the flowers below. It felt like something from an evening wedding or a backyard fairy tale. And while it took a bit of finesse to hang evenly, once in place, it became the crown jewel of my garden. So if you're planning a garden party, a quiet dinner outside, or just want to turn your yard into something extraordinary on a budget, this chandelier might just be the thing. But stay close. We're about to stack up some unexpected materials into a glowing garden sculpture you won't believe came from a dollar store. Part 11. Solar Totem Light Tower with a Twist. Next up, we're going vertical and a little sculptural with the Solar Totem Light Tower. This DIY had me intrigued from the start. People were stacking glass bowls and candle holders like modern garden obelisks, topped off with a solar light to create glowing towers after dark. Elegant, affordable, and just a little bit mysterious. I gathered a mix of clear and frosted glass pieces from Dollar Tree, bowls, vases, even an old candy dish. Using E6000 glue, I carefully stacked them one by one, layering them like a glass wedding cake. But I didn't stop there. Before assembling, I painted the inside of each bowl with glow-in-the-dark paint. Just a soft wash of color that would charge during the day and add a second glow even without the solar puck. Once dried and cured, I topped it off with a solar light nestled inside a small glass lid. During the day, it looked like a whimsical crystal sculpture. But at night, it transformed. The glow from the solar light mixed with the painted bowls, creating a layered, almost magical illumination from the inside out. It's delicate, yes, but when placed in a protected spot with full sun exposure, it holds up beautifully. This one turned out to be an unexpected favorite. It's the kind of DIY that invites people to stop and stare. And if you think that was creative, just wait. Our next project involves a twist on a classic garden element, a fountain made from serving trays that had a few surprises of its own. Part 12. Faux fountain from serving trays. A tricky beauty. When I first saw the DIY serving tray fountain online, I'll admit, I was skeptical. Could a few plastic trays, flower pots, and a dollar store pump really come together to create a cascading water feature? It sounded a little too ambitious, but also too fun not to try. I started by stacking 3 shallow serving trays, each separated by candle holders and glued together with waterproof adhesive. I cut a hole down the center for the tubing and tucked the tiny pump at the base. At first glance, it looked surprisingly polished, like something you'd find in a boutique garden catalog. But then came the moment of truth. I filled it with water, turned on the pump, and chaos. Water splashed out in every direction. Turns out, the trays were far too shallow to contain the flow. So I drained it, sealed the edges with waterproof caulk, and added tiny pebbles to weigh down the bottom layer and slow the water speed. With those adjustments, the second attempt worked. The water trickled down gently, the sound was soothing, and it actually looked high-end, especially when placed in a shady garden nook. But I'll say this, it's not for the low-maintenance crowd. Between cleaning, adjusting, and resealing, it's a project that requires love and patience. Still, for a weekend showpiece or a relaxing garden soundtrack, it's a satisfying build. But if water features aren't your thing, how about rolling into something a little more decorative, a little more farmhouse, and surprisingly adorable? Let's talk about a wheelbarrow that's not quite what it seems. Part 13. The Mini Wheelbarrow Planter. Farmhouse Fantasy on Wheels. If you've ever dreamed of having that picture-perfect farmhouse garden, complete with a charming old wheelbarrow overflowing with blooms, this next DIY is going to make your heart skip a beat. Believe it or not, it starts with a toy bin, a pizza pan, and a pair of wooden broomsticks. Yes, really. I was skeptical at first, but once I laid out the pieces, I started to see the vision. I painted the plastic bin a rustic brown, distressed it with dry-brushed ivory paint to mimic aged wood, and used the pizza pan as a decorative wheel. Wooden dowels created the legs, and the broomstick became the handlebar. Hot glue burns were inevitable, but the result? Pure charm. When I added in bright zinnias and dusty miller, it suddenly looked like it belonged at the entrance of a country bed and breakfast. It's not made to carry real weight. Of course, this one's all about style, not strength. But placed on a patio, porch, or right beside your front door, it draws the eye in a way few DIYs can. There's something about it that feels nostalgic, almost storybook-like. And for anyone wanting a statement piece that invites compliments and conversation, this one absolutely delivers. Just don't try to roll it across the yard with real soil inside. You'll end up with more mess than magic. Now, if you thought a toy bin wheelbarrow was unexpected, just wait until you see how I used leftover mason jars and solar lights to create one of the most enchanting garden paths yet. Coming right up. Part 14. Light Up Mason Jar Trail. A pathway to pure enchantment. Some projects don't just brighten your garden, they completely change the mood of it. That's exactly what happened with the mason jar trail. The idea is beautifully simple. Line your garden path with jars filled with soft, glowing lights, and let them guide you like fireflies home. I started with clear mason jars from Dollar Tree, then coiled battery-powered fairy lights inside each one. To keep them stable, I added a layer of decorative pebbles at the bottom, both for weight and for that extra bit of sparkle. I placed the jars evenly along my stepping stones and flipped the switches just as the sun dipped below the horizon. Instantly, everything changed. The soft, warm glow gave the path a dreamlike feel, like something from a storybook garden you'd only see in magazines. But after a few nights, the batteries wore out faster than I expected. That's when I made the switch to solar puck lights, tucked right inside the lids. Not only did it solve the battery problem, but it made the jars glow automatically each night without me lifting a finger. I even added a couple drops of essential oil, lavender in some, peppermint in others, to turn the walk into a sensory experience. It's magical. And if your garden has even the smallest path, this is the kind of DIY that invites wonder and still makes sense on a tight budget. But the glow-up doesn't end here. Next up is a garden shelf built from blocks and planks that might just become your favorite outdoor feature. Let's keep going. Part 15. Cinder Block Garden Shelf. Minimal effort, maximum impact. Every garden needs a spot to display its treasures, whether it's your favorite planters, a lantern or two, or that quirky ceramic frog you can't stop smiling at. And that's where this cinder block garden shelf comes in. It's bold, simple, and unbelievably sturdy, even if it bends the Dollar Tree rules just a little. Now, the cinder blocks themselves aren't from Dollar Tree, but everything else is. I grabbed a few wood planks, some pastel spray paint, and a handful of budget-friendly garden accessories. After stacking the blocks 2 by 2 and sliding the painted planks between them, I stepped back and realized I had just created something surprisingly beautiful. I went with a soft sage green for the planks. Calming, natural, and it blended perfectly into the garden backdrop. On top, I arranged a mix of Dollar Tree ceramic pots, tiny succulents, and a pair of hanging solar lanterns on the corners. Here's the best part. No tools, no screws, no stress. And because the shelf is low to the ground and weighty, it doesn't wobble in the wind or tip over like some lighter DIY builds. Just make sure the ground is level, and you're good to go. It's perfect for renters, small patios, or anyone craving that curated garden look without the high-end price tag. But if you thought this was the finale, you're in for one last colorful, spinning surprise. Up next, something that brings energy and motion to your garden in the most unexpected way. Part 16. Plate Wind Spinner Revival. Color, motion, and pure joy. To wrap up this DIY adventure, we're going out with a spin, literally. The plate wind spinner is one of those projects that makes you stop, smile, and wonder, how did something so playful come from a handful of kitchenware? I chose a mix of bold, summery plates in cobalt blue, sunflower yellow, and crisp white. Some plastic, some melamine for extra weight. I drilled a small hole in the center of each, then stacked them with spacers in between to create just the right distance for airflow. A swivel hook and a garden stake turned it all into a vertical spinner that catches even the gentlest breeze. The first time it turned, I'll be honest, it felt like the garden was celebrating with me. The colors twirled together in a hypnotic dance, casting shifting shadows on the grass below. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Lightweight plates wobbled too much, so I swapped in sturdier pieces toward the outer layers, which balanced everything beautifully. This DIY isn't about practicality, it's about joy. It adds movement, sound, and a splash of personality to your outdoor space. It's one of those builds that doesn't take itself too seriously, and maybe that's exactly why it's so delightful. So whether you've got a balcony or a backyard, a big budget or just a few bucks, this spinning garden sculpture proves that creativity and a little wind can bring everything to life. But before we close, let's talk about what really worked and what you might want to skip. Let's head into the reality check. Reality check and rankings. What truly worked and what flopped fast. After testing all 16 DIYs in the blazing sun, gusty winds, and even a few surprise rain showers, one thing became clear. Not everything that goes viral online is built to survive in the real world. And that's okay, because the real value, it's in discovering what's worth your time, energy, and precious garden space. Let's start with the winners, the ones I'd build again without hesitation. The crystal solar lantern absolutely shined, both literally and figuratively. It held up to the weather, and that soft golden glow every evening never failed to make me smile. Right behind it, the mason jar trail, so simple, so charming, and a total mood setter. If you have even the shortest walkway, it's worth every minute. The rustic ladder stand also earned its keep. It's strong, stylish, and mobile, which is surprisingly helpful when chasing sunbeams across the patio. The beaded chandelier added an elegant sparkle I didn't know my garden needed, and the fence planter wall, once reinforced, delivered maximum greenery with minimal footprint, perfect for renters or tight spaces. But now, let's talk about the ones that didn't quite hold up. The bird bath, while cute for a photo, warped and leaked under midday sun, not ideal for long-term use. The fountain made from serving trays looked lovely at first, but required constant tweaking to stay functional. And the succulent shoe organizer, while adorable, just wasn't deep or durable enough for real plants unless you swapped them for faux or air plants. At the end of the day, every flop came with a lesson. Always seal your projects, test your materials, and adjust for your climate, because what thrives in one yard may fall apart in another. Still, the wins? They made every glue gun, burn, and messy mistake worth it. And just when I thought I was done, I looked at my leftover supplies and had one last idea. Coming up next, a completely original DIY that brought everything full circle and cost me nothing but imagination. The glowing garden lantern planter, made from scraps. After all the testing, trimming, and tinkering, I found myself surrounded by leftover odds and ends. Half-used fairy lights, an extra wire basket, some stray beads, and one last solar puck light. Most people might have tossed them in a drawer, but I saw potential. One more creation. One last spark of garden magic. So I flipped the wire basket upside down and placed it over a small potted plant like a decorative cage. Around the outside, I wrapped a string of soft white fairy lights, weaving them through the metal frame like vines. Then I attached a few leftover plastic crystals to dangle from the rim, letting them catch the breeze and shimmer in the sunlight. The final touch? A solar puck light placed underneath the plant, angled upward. When dusk rolled in, the whole setup came alive. The plant glowed from below, shadows danced through the basket wires, and the crystals scattered delicate light across the patio like stars. And the best part? It cost me nothing, just creativity and a bit of patience. Sometimes the most surprising beauty comes not from following a tutorial, but from letting your scraps guide you. This little lantern wasn't part of the original plan, but in a way, it became the perfect ending, a reminder that gardens aren't just about perfection. They're about play, possibility, and making something lovely with what you have. Let's wrap it all up. Lessons from the garden and the glue gun. So what did all of this teach me, besides how to unstick my fingers from hot glue? Honestly, a lot more than I expected. This wasn't just about testing DIYs or checking off viral trends. It became a journey into creativity, patience, and the quiet kind of joy that only comes from making something with your own two hands. Some of these projects were absolute winners, ones I'll proudly keep in my garden for seasons to come. Others? Beautiful in theory, but not built for real-life weather or wear. But every single one, even the flops, offered a moment of discovery. A chance to look at everyday objects and see something more, something magical. And that's the heart of what we do here on Earthly Delights. We take the ordinary and turn it into something extraordinary. With just a few dollars, a bit of imagination, and a little trial and error, you can build a garden that reflects who you are. If you found even one idea today that sparked something in you, I hope you'll try it. Make it your own. Change it. Improve it. That's the beauty of DIY, it evolves with you. And if you haven't already, be sure to hit subscribe and join our growing family of creators, tinkerers, and green-thumb dreamers. Until next time, happy planting, and may your glue always hold strong.